Sweet. Well, let's just get rolling. I'm really excited about this one. I finally got to meet Allan at Pest World. We connected, and I've been watching him online for probably a couple of years. He probably doesn't even know that. Just you connected with people on pest control. But Allan is the CEO, right, of Proof Pest Control?
Just found a CEO to replace myself.
Yeah, I heard that. We'll talk about that too. That's really cool. So you're the founder, Proof.
Founder, yep.
Originally, you're out of Utah, correct?
Yeah, I went to school there, but came to Arizona for law school, and moved from Arizona to Detroit, Michigan to start our first branch.
I love that. So let's start there. First, tell us how you got into the industry, because again, you're a totally different route.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I came through, I guess, the door-to-door side, you could say, because my brother and a lot of people that I knew were selling pest control door-to-door, having a lot of success with it. So that's how I was first introduced to pest control. In 2006, I go work for a pest control company in Columbus, Ohio, Insight Pest Control. And the idea was, hey, my brother Brent, he's going to do the sales, I'll manage the operations. So we were going to start a company back then. And it just didn't work out, man. We were too immature, undercapitalized. We couldn't get along. He sticks with door-to-door pest control, ends up owning a company a few years later. I go to law school. I end up practicing law for a few years. And there's this moment where we're all in Las Vegas for Valentine's Day with our spouses. And he's headed back to Utah. I'm driving back to Phoenix. And he finds out that he's going to be exiting his company. And it was that moment I was right in, neck deep in practicing law. And so I'm like, hey, man, maybe there's this opportunity. So I start talking to him about starting a company. And what's funny is I had to sell him on the idea, right? He was in the industry, but he was, burned out in some ways. And took me a while, but we eventually decided to pull the trigger on it.
Where are you living at this time?
I'm living in Phoenix. He's living in Utah. And we decide it's probably June, July, and this is 2014.
And so why did you decide to go to Detroit?
We did some research on the market. We really liked that it was being ignored by a lot of companies, especially on the door-to-door side. We felt like there was a lot of opportunity there, even though, if you think about 2014, that's not long after, Detroit declared bankruptcy, and there was the bailout with the big three and with certain banks. And so we just felt like it wasn't getting its share of the limelight that it deserved, and that there was a lot more about Detroit than people were giving it credit for. And we were one of the first ever door-to-door pest control companies there. And it's one of the best moves we ever made.
Yeah, it's smart. It's a great market. Obviously, we both know that. But you go from law to pest control, it must have been tough. Like that's not an easy decision to make.
Yeah, what's funny is that out of all the people that I told, and trust me, there were a lot of people that were surprised, right? They're like, man, you went to law school and now you're going to become a bug guy, which I'm very proud of, by the way. But the people that had the hardest time, like just making sense of it, were my law school classmates. When I told them, they're like, wait, what? Like, you have a law degree? And because they were side by side with me as we were studying in law school, how difficult it was. Then we studied for the bar exam, how difficult that was, how time consuming, how much effort we put into it. And for me, it was like, just because I did something good doesn't mean I'm going to allow that to be an excuse for me doing something great. And that's how I looked at it. And think about it. It's early, man. I hadn't made a single dollar in pest control yet, but that's a perspective that I had was, hey, whatever I did with law is going to be a stepping stone. Not that it was insignificant, because it wasn't, but it's a stepping stone for the next few years of my life. And if we come full circle, a few years ago, I had a couple of my law school classmates reach out to me wanting to leave their job at firms looking to put together a few bucks, and they needed some help with kind of the business setup, and kind of a lot of it was just the motivation. And so they came to me. They're like, "Hey, Allan, we need to borrow some money and we want to start a firm." And I said, "Awesome, let's do it. I need to be involved. The only way I'm going to do it is if I get equity in the firm." And they're like, "Let's do it." And so I took a position with the law firm a few years ago, and I'm actually a named partner. My law firm is Ernst, Brown and Draper. And I don't practice law. They do all of that, and they manage all the people. It's a very passive investment for me. But so I was a lawyer turned bug guy turned law firm owner. So it's kind of come full circle there.
Yeah, that's funny. When we sat down for dinner, I think you mentioned that at this point in your career, you don't do anything without a little bit of equity into something at this point in your life, right?
Yeah. So it's nice. I own quite a few companies, and what I'll do is I'll kind of get them started, and then I partner with people that are operational in nature, and they'll kind of take control, and they'll run the companies. I used to think that I was really good at management, and that was my passion, and building companies. I think building in the first couple of years, and then it's time for me to hire somebody that's better, or to have one of my partners just do it, which is more of what I've done recently. And you, Jonas, know one of my partners and one of my very best friends, someone I'm very close with, Matt Rogers. And he and I own a digital marketing agency together called Lizard SEM. And so it's the same with him. So he's in the day-to-day stuff, and I'm just kind of there as a sounding board a lot of times.
Yeah. And for all those guys who don't know Matt, he is such a fun guy to be around. He's just a big ball of energy. I enjoyed every minute I spent with him. He's a great dude.
He is. And it's funny because I texted him right before we hit the record button, and he's like, "Dude, tell Jonas to call me."
It's funny because I was going to say, I need to get Matt Rogers on here because it would be great for Lizard Marketing. Again, I like both of you. We connected well. We have the same passions. It's really cool. I know you're a great dad, coaching football. Got to learn a lot about you in a little bit of time, but it was super awesome. So Detroit, how long are you in Detroit? What's your first year to look like? And then when do you open up branch number 2? By the way, for the record, you guys are 10 branches right now?
We have 10 branches, 7 states. Yep.
So 10 branches, 7 states. They're 8+ figure business. They're doing very, very well. But why don't you just walk us through like the first year or two, what it looked like, then when you started to scale up the door-to-door side?
Yeah, so we did, and we started with door-to-door.
Did you knock doors?
I didn't really. I was more on the operational side, taking customer calls, selling over the phone, those types of things.
Right on. But
yeah, I think we hit just about 600,000 in revenue our first year, which we opened our doors. I think we got our license March 15th, March 20th, something like that of 2015. And so that, we had about three of the 4 quarters that first year. And then we opened our second branch the next year in Boston. So that happened. I moved from Detroit. So I moved from Phoenix to Detroit to start Proof. And then from Detroit to Boston, we moved, I think it was April. So I was in Detroit a little over a year before we started our next branch.
So if you haven't heard about Gorilladesk yet, it's a super sick software. It's actually made by one of my really close friends, Chris Moreshi. So Chris built Gorilladesk to help streamline his own personal business over 10 years ago. But now Gorilladesk is used by over 4,000 companies. And today it's become one of the most premier platforms in our industry. So what's really unique about Gorilladesk is that it's a simple all-in-one solution that's really easy for your team to use. Gorilladesk offers a seamless onboard experience and best-in-class support with no additional cost. It's all included in your subscription. Inside the software, you'll find a whole suite of features: scheduling, invoicing, routing, and sales pipelines, integrated VoIP, text messaging, and pretty much all the automation you're going to need, and much, much more. So if you guys are still relying on paper or spreadsheets or fighting with an old software, I highly recommend that you guys check out Gorilladesk. So we have a link in our description. Click on that and it'll take you right to their free trial. Now let's get back to the show. Right on. What was the reason to go to Boston so soon? Was it forced to happen, or did it happen just all the ducks align? What happened there?
Yeah, so we knew that we wanted to, have the foot down on the pedal in terms of growth. And one of our strategies back then that we no longer follow, or not to the same degree, is that we would partner with a minority partner that would oversee a door-to-door program to get us started and going. And so we had a new partner, and our way of building was to start a new branch with that individual versus adding him to what we had already started.
Right. I figured as much. Was that guy, obviously he was really good at door to door, probably paying him more commissions than anyone else. Like, hey, I got to get this guy out of here. Like, let's open him his own thing situation.
Yeah. So what we looked for in those days, and still to some extent, is somebody that can recruit and manage a team. So obviously we love people that can sell a lot of accounts, but the bigger piece is, hey, how does he leverage his time and put on accounts when he's not working or she's not working? That's the idea, right? And the way to do that through door to door is recruiting and managing teams.
For sure. So year 2, you go to Boston. What's year 1 in Boston like? Was it good, bad?
Year 1 in Boston, I think it was a pretty solid year. I don't know that we did the same that we did year 1 in Detroit, but I think it was pretty close. I think we did maybe $500,000 in revenue year 1, really liked the market. And I was only there from April till about October, I think. And then I was able to move back to Phoenix once that branch was up and running.
And are you married at this time?
Married. Yep. So I'd been married for about 7 or 8 years before we started Proof. And when I moved from Phoenix to Detroit originally, I had a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old.
Which is not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was a lot going on, and it was for me, it was like now or never. I wasn't going to use that as a crutch.
For sure. What was the conversation with your wife?
I love telling this story because I had kind of been talking to my brother, but I wasn't telling her because it wasn't, I didn't know if it was going to materialize into anything. And so one day I get home from my commute from downtown Phoenix as a lawyer, and I say, hey, Jules, yeah, I'm thinking about quitting my job. And she's like, okay. I'm like, and I think I'm going to start a pest control company. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, and I think we're going to move from Phoenix to Detroit to do it. And she's like, she looks at me and she's like, let's do it.
There was that.
never a hesitation. And you know what's funny is that I was telling her we still weren't sure. It was something that I was considering early on. And I was kind of putting myself out there to her. And I don't know if she knew it or not. Maybe she caught on. But I was looking for exactly that reinforcement, right? We need that in our lives because we're always doing stuff that we're not comfortable with. And if we're comfortable with it, we're already too late, right? And so it was this incredible moment because, dude, lots of unknowns, right? Put yourself in her shoes. She's like, hey, I've got these little kids at home, and I just put my husband through law school and all these things. And so to have my back like that is, that level of loyalty doesn't exist everywhere.
For sure. Was she working at the time too?
No, she wasn't. She was stay-at-home mom. So that was one of our arrangements. She's like, hey, you take care of the finance of the family and providing, because I just want to stay home with my kids. That was her goal, like her end all be all. And so she helped me get through law school, but she hasn't had a outside the house job, I should say, for 13 years or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah. So that first year, I mean, obviously it's pretty tough. You're moving a family down to Detroit. You're starting back from zero, probably not have a whole lot of money at the time. Maybe you did, maybe it's money saved. I mean, it must've been brutal. I've been there, done it. So I know too, like it's rough.
Dude, it's and I actually just wrote a book. It's in the editing phase. It's going to be released the beginning of second quarter, around April 2025.
Do you have a name yet?
I don't. I'm doing a rollout of the title in the next month.
Sweet. Congratulations. I'm excited.
Yeah, thanks, man. The idea of the book is what are the sacrifices that are required to build a business without sacrificing what matters most? Because a lot of beginning entrepreneurs, they struggle because they're like, am I, sacrificing too much? Am I not sacrificing enough? Where do I stand on this? And so that's what it's all about. And it's about sacrificing the right things. And early on in proof, man, I swear there were weeks where I quit every single day. I quit. I went home. I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do. I'm going to have a hard time getting a job because the legal community is close knit. People are going to hear that I quit, moved across the country, started a business. It failed. And, there was just something in me that wanted to build something. And I like to say that if I had started it in Phoenix where I lived, there's no way it would have made it.
It's too easy to go back home and start over.
I think so, dude, because my safety net, I have a great safety net. A lot of people don't have. I have a professional degree. I have an active law license that I honestly don't really ever want to use again. But, those early days, and I think, you know what it's like, man. It's like you ask yourself, what the heck were you thinking? Right? Why did I do this? Where's my motivation? I thought I was going to be making a lot more money and have a control over my time. And now I have less time and less money. It's the funny thing is that that's where a lot of the growth occurs, when it's like, man, what did I get myself into? What am I capable of? What is my team capable of? And just figuring it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Speaking of team, how many guys did you have that first year?
I think we had about 10 to 12 door-to-door reps in that realm. And then from the beginning, we just started hiring technicians.
No, are you recruiting out of Utah? Are you recruiting out of Detroit? What was your plan? What was your thought there?
So we're recruiting, I think it was a little bit out of Utah, but it was mostly just using connections from people that we knew. So we had a few guys from Idaho, dude from Colorado. So kind of a little all over the place. We didn't have a recruiting office or an office at all in those days. So it was mostly like, hey, whose number do I have that might be interested?
That's awesome. And I'm assuming you had a couple of guys follow your brother over with you too?
Yep. So he was the one doing most of that. I had made connections with that partner that opened the branch with us in Boston. So that came through me, but yeah, that was mostly, his thing. Cause that's, what he had been doing for, at that point, the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah. Is your brother still involved?
Still involved. Yep. Still on the door-to-door marketing side mostly, but involved in any high-level decisions that we make.
Let's go. Younger, older?
He's a year and a half younger. So it's kind of that age where, I have siblings that, that are a lot older or younger than me, but it's those ones that are close where you butt heads and it's very competitive. But yeah, over the years, we've figured out how to make it work. Hasn't been easy, but we've done it.
That's cool. And again, you probably one of your best friends, and you can literally have a fist fight that night and be best friends an hour later. That's just how guys roll.
Yep. And it literally has happened.
I believe it. Okay. So we're on to year 2, basically. You're up in Boston. Obviously, there's still 8 more locations. How do those come about? Was kind of the same situation?
Yeah, I think it was a little different because after the second branch in Boston, I wouldn't physically move to those locations. I would go out there and find a branch manager that would help get everything set up and get off the ground. So we went from Detroit to Boston, to Denver, Colorado.
Funny enough, I saw one of your trucks when I was there.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Nice. And those are our 3 largest branches, obviously Detroit, Boston, Denver, partly because that's where we've been the longest. So then we went Salt Lake, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Phoenix, Arizona, Long Island, New York, Reno, Nevada, Lansing, Michigan, and Colorado Springs, Colorado.
What's been the hardest one?
Arizona.
Really? Just because there's so much pressure there from other pest control companies?
I think it's that. I think our model's a little different. We started Detroit, Boston, Denver, Salt Lake, right? Cold weather. Salt Lake has a lot of pest control companies.
I think I read somewhere that there's 1,000 licenses just in Arizona alone or something like that.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. So I think it was just the model was a little different. We didn't start with a door-to-door team in Arizona. And so it kind of caught us off guard. We just completed a decent size acquisition here, though, just 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So we're starting to grow through that model as well as door-to-door and digital marketing.
That's really cool. I mean, you've been through a lot over the last 14 years, or whatever it's been. What's been some of the hardest things you've been through besides year one, setting it up, like other struggles you guys have been through that could be helpful for the listeners? Like was setting up your office, was like your call center, like what were some hard things?
You have all those things, all businesses do. But when you asked that question, the first thing that came to mind were, my partnerships that didn't work out. And I have a bunch of them. I currently have, I think it's 28 business partners, active business partners. But then I have a handful, probably 8 or so or 9 that didn't work out. And just the relationships, man, that started to break down. And I hope I became a better partner through those experiences, but those wear on me. I have businesses that have lost money. I've had businesses I've had to shut down. I've have investments that I've lost money on. That doesn't, I don't like it, but I don't lose sleep over that stuff. But those relationships, and then there's some employee relationships, some really long-term employee relationships that broke down and became, I don't want to say toxic, but a little hostile. And I saw a few of those folks at Pest World in Denver just a couple of weeks ago, and it's sad, man. It's sad and it wears on me. But I think the relationships, and keep in mind that anybody that owns a pest control company, they can list the struggles they've gone through, things that have happened to them. I've had a technician run over a dead body. I've had technicians end up in jail in proof uniforms from stealing from customers. I've had technicians be arrested for lewd behavior that I won't discuss at this point. All these things, right? We've had technicians break stuff and steal stuff and flip people off and get in accidents and all these things. That's what happens when you have a bunch of 20, 30 year olds driving vehicles all around town. But I can deal with those. The relationships, that's what is a longer term struggle for me.
Yeah, for sure. I could see that. Yeah, we just had a first time ever, but there's always a first time for everything. Same situation. Brought a kid in, good kid, wrestler, good background, never been in trouble. All of a sudden last week, 2 weeks ago, we got a call from one of the local grocery stores, big chain too. And they had him on camera stealing some liquor at 19 years old, literally a $5 bottle, like tiny little thing, with our uniform on, walking out. And what do you obviously we called and we separated that day, and we apologize over and over. That's not who we are. Obviously we can't control everything that everyone does on their lunch break or after work, and they're still wearing our uniform or not. But yeah, it's those little things that pile up every single day that people don't hear about as a business owner they have to deal with. And yeah, it's not easy, but it's I was like, you know what, in a week from now, because they put it on Facebook, of course, and it's all over Wisconsin and blah, blah, blah. But it's in a week from now, no one will remember that. So you just got to just deal with it at the time. Make sure you do everything, dot your I's and cross your T's and do it the right way, But yeah, it sucks. It's definitely not fun.
It's funny because when you first start a business and you start getting punched in the face, I remember everything that happened, however small. I'm like, okay, that was it. We gave it a good shot. We tried. I thought everything was the end. And it's you realize hey, we're tough. We're resilient. We can figure this out. We can have these things happen over and over and over. And, I think that's cool. Something that's cool about our industry is we all have these stories of people doing stuff that they shouldn't do. And we just try to do the right thing.
Yeah. And like I said, you can't look on their background check and say, oh, everything's clear. And then he comes in to, and steals something. You don't know they're going to do that, obviously. We had a guy in here a couple months ago, Paul. Yeah. One of his technicians had found 20 some dead people over his career.
Oh my goodness.
So, like he just goes into like, houses or whatever to go service. And yeah, I think there's like double digits. So yeah, like it happens to all of us, like I've never had that happen to me personally or any of our team. Like that's never happened, but it's bound to happen at some point.
Yep.
But yeah, it's if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Exactly. Well, and I love the pest control industry. I have businesses in other industries, legal, digital marketing, software, product development, online courses, but bunch of things like that. Pest control is special, and one of the things that's special about it is it's kind of hard to disrupt. And I think the way that you disrupt it is by retaining your customers and retaining your people, and because it's so labor intensive, it's tough for like an Amazon to come in and be like, oh, I'm going to get in the pest control industry, right? I'm not saying it won't happen. I'm not saying that there won't be robots doing pest control someday. I could see that happen. Drones, killing wasp nests with drones and stuff like that. But it's a people industry. It really is, and I love that about us. It's like, hey, you got to do the work. There's no real shortcuts. There's some things that you can do to, see around the corner or to avoid some mistakes. But man, you got to do the work. You got to sell the accounts. You got to service them. You got to retain your people. If you're looking for a magic bullet, go find another industry, because this is like, you got to put in the hours.
For sure. You said mistakes. What have been the biggest mistakes that you've learned personally, or you think that you come across that you can remember?
I think a lot of it is going to be kind of going back to those relationships and how you treat people. So my biggest mistakes have been, and trust me, Jonas, I've made some bad decisions with where to invest money. How should we grow the company? Those types of things. But I think long term, just the relationships that I've, burned or ruined, like just, I used to think that being right was more important than being kind. And it's just not true when it's your partners and people that look to you for support. So, and it's the same with employees. We need to allow people to fail and make mistakes, and not just allow them to do that, but have their back when they do. That's hard. That's really hard to do. And there's a difference between somebody stealing a $5 bottle of liquor at the grocery store and someone sending the wrong invoices to 100 customers. Those aren't the same thing. You did the right move. You got to disassociate from that individual ASAP. But a really good person with good intentions that makes a mistake, and so over the years, a lot of my mistakes have been not showing up for people, employees and partners, when I should have, and having their backs. Because when you do that, when you don't want to have their back, or when you do think that they're wrong, there's going to come a time where the tables are turned and you're going to want them to have your back. You're going to need them. There's going to be a crunch. You're going to have an employee shortage. You're going to have issues with another partner, a big decision coming up. And the way to do that is you need to put that deposit into that emotional bank account when they need it. And that's how to build loyalty, and something that I've learned just through mistake after mistake.
Yeah, I could definitely. I mean, we all have a younger version of ourselves, and as we get older, I think we calm down a little bit too. But there's a lot of pressure on it, and I'm not making excuses for you, and I'm not making excuses for me. But there's a lot of pressure on us, especially early on, and it weighs on us pretty heavy. And then I think as you get older, you calm down a little bit and just see it for what it is. It's not so bad. It's not the end of the world. And I've said this on the podcast a million times. And if a person calls me and I don't answer, if they're close to me, like I try to answer as soon as possible, or get back to them as soon as possible. But I just tell them, like, hey, at the end of the day, just say, what's in the best interest for Pest Badger? And no matter which decision that you take, whether it's right or wrong, as long as you had those intentions, I'll never be mad at you. I'll have your back. But it took me a long time to learn that too,
That's such a good point. And today's actually election day, right? And when I went to law school, I grew up in conservative Idaho, okay, rural Idaho, and I never, I didn't become super close with people that had extreme political views on the other side from mine. Not deliberately. It wasn't presented to me. And then I became really good friends. My best friend in law school, hardcore liberal, and he was such a good guy with really good intentions. And we just had these beliefs that were so different. But at one point, I realized our intentions were very similar. It was just what we viewed as the result or the decision was different, right? But the intentions, it's like, hey, we just want people to be respected and have good lives and have our rights protected. We both wanted those things. And so it's like that with partners and decision makers in your company. And it took me a while to understand this concept with my partners. When we would argue about a direction that we were going to take or whatever it was, it's like, hey, like you have to realize that your business partner wants the same thing that you want. And that's for the business to prosper and to grow, and your employees, the really valuable ones, they want that same thing. So remember that when you're going into these difficult arguments, these difficult discussions, like, hey, we want the same thing. And sometimes I'll say that, like if, with our CEO and other partners or a vendor, and there's a tough conversation, I'll say that. I'll be like, hey guys, let's just start with this. We all want the same thing. We want proof to grow. We want to add employees. We want to expand our footprint. Now from that, we can have difference of opinions. But I think when you start there and you kind of humanize the person on the other side, it makes a big difference. That's helped me in dealing with these difficult circumstances with employees and partners.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great information. And I would agree with that and just say, like, us as a CEO, like founder, whatever, we want people to push against us. We're not going to be right 100% of the time. You have to have those people like make you think a little bit different, right? So like when you hire your C-suite team and they're pushing back, like, oh, you got to be open to like, okay, this person's got a really good idea. Like, I'm not always gonna have the best answer, but that's why we build a leadership team around us.
That's exactly right. I always say that if I hire somebody and they do everything that I did and they think exactly like I think, then one of the two of us is unnecessary. So we need that. We need that contrast. In Good to Great, Jim Collins wrote about that. He wrote about how people could go in and they could have very vehement and aggressive conversations. But the idea was that whatever decision was made by this board or by this team, every member that was there, whether they proposed the idea or opposed it, they would leave that room as if it were their own idea. And that's where loyalty was built. And that's how they moved companies along.
Yeah, we've had current conversations about that in the past 2 weeks. We're all locked up in a room, and I said, "This is what's on the table. By the time we leave here, everyone's going to say the same thing." Maybe I didn't word it as good as you did, but like everyone's going to leave here, and we're say like, and we're all going to be behind whichever decision we chose. So I love that, and it's a great book too. Go back to the CEO. Like I know you just currently hired a CEO, so you're taking like a board seat, I'm assuming, or are you just what's your role in the company now? And then kind of walk us through the process of hiring that person.
So I had, over the last 4 or 5 years, I had somebody that was in a COO position that was basically running the company, day-to-day president of operations and things like that. And so over the last, about that time, 5 years, I've just been decreasing the amount of time I spend on Proof, increasing the amount of time I spend on other companies. With this new CEO, the title actually switched where it was, I haven't been to my office. 2019, I stopped going in, but I don't have a key to it. And it's just down the road from my house. I noticed that people solve problems on their own better when I wasn't there. But with this new role, fantastic individual, ran a market for rent-to-kill, very qualified for the position. And he's been with us just shy of a year now. And, you were just talking about having that different perspective. And he's brought a lot of that with him. New to the door-to-door world, still trying to, grasp it entirely, very familiar with acquisitions and growing that way, and just a great manager. So you asked about the process of hiring him. I didn't create a job posting. For that level of job, it was only going to come through referral and invitation. And I reached out to my good friend, Paul Gianamore, and so he referred me to a couple of people, and then one of those two people referred me to somebody that led me to the CEO. So it took a while to get there, but it was a match made in heaven.
That's awesome. Are you still the visionary of the company, or?
Yeah. So I think that's my role with a lot of my companies, but with Proof, it allows me where I'm not down in the day-to-day. I'm not in the weeds, so to speak. We have this vision for where we want Proof to be in the next 5-10 years. And so that's kind of when I get on the phone with our CEO, CFO, and other owners, it's like, those are the questions that I'm asking. Like, hey, how does what we're doing and how does what we're deciding right now affect this longer term vision of Proof?
I love that. As far as like your leadership meetings, do you guys follow any type of like EOS? Do you guys do anything like that? Or do you guys just some of you guys built yourself?
We were using 4DX before, the 4 disciplines of execution. And with the new CEO, that's kind of faded away, and he's instituted kind of this custom program. I don't know if he has a name for it or if it's kind of a well-known leadership style, but something that just in corporate management he's learned over the years.
That's really cool. And then how often do you talk to your partners?
I talk to some of my partners I talk to or text every single day. So, and then I'll have a couple of partners at Proof that once a month, maybe. And then Matt Rogers, I talk to every day or text every day pretty much. But some, I own I'm an owner of a really cool product that pitched on Shark Tank.
I already have that written down in my notes to talk about.
And my partners, Aaron and Tony, are running the show, and Christian, and they're doing a great job with that. I talk to them once every few months. They've kind of just taken that on. So it just varies based off of where the company is and what they need.
Yeah, that's cool. Can we talk a little bit about the whole Shark Tank thing?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Like, how did the product come about? How did you get involved? And then walk us through the process of going on Shark Tank. I mean, it's super cool. I heard this story, but for the listeners, it'd be great. Yeah,
for sure. So my partners, they developed this product without me, and that kind of for the listener, the product is an epoxy type product that you apply to the stem wall, the bottom of the foundation of the house. So just above the dirt, right? Or the grass or whatever the landscaping around the house. You apply that all the way around, and then it hardens and creates this glass-like surface that's really slick. And it was developed as a scorpion product. We have bark scorpions in Arizona that are terrible, and they nest in the ground and they can't fly. So the only way they can get into your house is they have to, climb the wall, find a crack, crevice, get in. But if you have this slick barrier all the way around the house, their feet don't allow them to get tactile on the surface, and so they just slip off. Well, we found that this worked for all sorts of insects, critters, pests, works on rodents really well. So over the years, they've continued to develop, work with chemists and patent attorneys. And I think we just got our 4th or 5th patent just like the last week or two. We're in a bunch of Home Depots. We've tried different models of distribution. We used to go through pest control companies and just struggled a little bit with the application of it.
I was going to say, is it the hardest part been the application, or has been the development of getting it on the shelves, the distribution side of it?
I think it's the application of it, because it's sticky and messy. Now it's colorless, so it's clear when it's applied. And so it can be a little shiny. No one really comes up to your house and looks at the, bottom by the, but you can see a little bit of a sheen. But I think that's it. And I think the application, because the application is kind of difficult, the distribution has been a little difficult. So something that we've been trying to figure out over the years. My partners pitched it on Shark Tank. They were the ones doing all the work. They did such a great job getting it on the show.
What was that like? Were you part of that at all? Like trying to get it on the show?
I was involved in kind of the process. They were doing all the labor work. They were basically just keeping me up to date as to what was going on. But they presented, Tony and Aaron presented, and you can Google it. It's Slick Barrier Shark Tank. You can watch their episode. But I was in Utah for mandatory meetings for Proof at the same time. So I didn't make the trip out to LA when it was recorded. We ended up getting an offer from Lori. And I think that offer, it's been at least 2 years now, but that offer still, it might have been 3 years, still kind of out there. It's funny because they do the whole hug and shake hands, and it's like, dude, that's when the discussions start, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's when money gets involved, right? What was the purpose for going on a Shark Tank? Was it to were you raising capital? Did you want help on the distribution side with her? What were you looking for when you went? Yeah,
actually, both of those things. We were looking to raise some capital, but I think the bigger part was we needed help just figuring out what we have, and we're still trying to figure it out. It's such an amazing product. It is really foolproof. There's a way to do some recurring revenue with it through renewals, like a termite.
That's where I was going to go there. Yeah. Cause I could think of like pest control itself, like your own pest control company, but you're putting this on the house. So is that going to decrease the contract value or the houses that you can get? Like that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, there's lots of cool things. And I think one of our hurdles has been we've tried so many different things, right? And I think we're getting closer to finding out, is this a
DIYer or a company? Yeah,
exactly. So it kind of be like, I don't know if you've seen those epoxy garage floors where people can kind of do them themselves. It would be equivalent to that type of labor. So of course, you're going to have some people out there that will do it themselves. You'll have people that will pay to have it done. And we're just trying to figure out that model.
That's really awesome. So you think you guys will sign that deal with Lori, or is it still something you guys talk about? I know what you said at the table. I remember what you said at the table, but
I would really like to. I don't know that it will. I'm skeptical that it will happen at this point. I think that ship may have sailed while it's still out there. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would like to see it happen, but we're trying to figure it out on our own and see what the next step is.
Awesome. You mentioned earlier that you kind of have a plan for the next 5 to 10 years for Proof. What does that look like?
Yeah, for Proof, I think we're just really going to put the pedal down. We're going to start making larger and larger acquisitions and doubling down with Lizard marketing, with digital. And I don't know that we're going to expand our footprint right now. I think at this stage, we're going to grow, the analogy, lift where you stand. Let's continue. There's a lot of capacity in the markets we're already in, but I could see us growing to new markets in that time frame also.
So you've been in door-to-door since roughly 2014, right? What you said?
Yep.
What's it like from 2014 to 2024? Have you seen a big difference in the amount of reps are on the doors, the commissions, like the pressure? What do you think there?
Yeah, I think the market's way different. I think reps can demand more. Marketing teams can demand more. Commission rates have never been higher. Technology has made knocking a little different.
Knocking around paper estimates.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, people would literally go door to door. Now there's people that they'll only knock on new homes or recent move-ins, or they'll use technology to, acquire information like, hey, somebody just got a new solar roof. So it's like, hey, I'm partnering with the solar company and we're taking care of the pest control. So it's a little different. I feel like it's, may age myself a little bit, but back in the day, it was like, hey, we just pound on doors, just grind it out and just get your hours in on the doors and make it a numbers game. And now it's, people trying to cut corners a little bit and try to be more efficient, which I don't have a problem with, but it's just different. It's, now there are people out there that still do it the old school way, that get their hours in, but it's a little different. They still want those really high commission rates, and and there's more competition on the doors. There's never been more door-to-door reps. The other thing is, pest control is always seen as the, ugly stepchild, right? And the cooler door-to-door options are like solar or home automation, if we've gone through the cycle, cable, security, but we just keep, hanging in there. And solar has taken a really, really big hit. And I'm seeing a lot of door-to-door reps come over from solar to pest.
I see a lot going to internet. That fiber internet's really big right now too.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And that's kind of like cable used to be. They used to sell cable door-to-door. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for pest control companies to go after door-to-door reps, especially with what's going on with solar.
For sure. What do you think the future looks like for the door-to-door?
It's so crazy because door-to-door originated in the 60s or something with vacuums.
Yeah,
and
right. My grandpa started knocking doors back in the 70s.
So, you always want to say, hey, it's gonna phase out, like it's gonna end. But man, I don't know. It's such an efficient way to do business, and people talk about, sling mud on door-to-door reps and there are some out there that are lying to people. They don't know what they're talking about.
And I'd be lying to you if I said that we didn't have those come through. We just got to get rid of them.
For sure. And I don't think those types of, I'm a capitalist, and I think the economy eventually works things out where it's like, hey, they can be a flash in a pan, but they're going to go away. So there are some negative sides to it with some bad actors, but dude, I think right now it's growing. The door-to-door industry is growing, and I think it's going to continue to grow for the foreseeable future. I could be wrong, but I've seen memes of, with Elon Musk's AI bot, his robot, people saying, hey, I had my robot knock on, 1,000 doors today or something for me. But I see door-to-door staying strong. And the reason why is because I see what companies are willing to pay for them, because I broker deals between marketing companies and pest control companies, and they're still paying quite a bit for an account.
For sure. Do you think that the accounts will get cheaper or more expensive when it comes to the marketing side for door-to-door guys? I
think there's a tiny bit of room for them to get more expensive, but not much. So we're at the peak. We're at the peak. Yeah, we'll see those start to come down, but they'll never get low, I don't think. And part of that's because of two things. One, it's a commission-based job. So there's no real risk. They don't sell an account that meets certain qualifications, so they don't have to pay. They don't have to pay on it. There's a really high ability to earn on them, and then the ability to grow. So those things make it so that, I think outside of one-offs, you're not going to really see marketing companies at less than 70%. I don't ever see it going that low, 65% maybe.
Yeah, I agree with you too. But they can put on some accounts for sure. Going back, just looking over the last 10 years, and that besides the relationship part, is there anything that you wish you would have done different?
I probably wouldn't have spread myself so thin on the number of branches so quickly. Within 3 years, I think we had 5 branches or something, and then COVID hit. So I think I learned a lot in the process, but I think that it's kind of this fad where it's like, oh, we got a branch, we're going to go somewhere else and open a new branch. Now, we had a very specific reason. We'd bring on a partner that was starting, and so we were starting this new thing. But I would have been slower to do that. I would have, you can get in big metros, you can have tens of thousands of accounts and build a really nice company in a single metro. So I would have probably been more deliberate about that decision and slowed the geographic growth down and still accelerated just the sheer market penetration.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I fell into the trap early on too, because you see all these door-to-door companies popping more locations. Like, but then you have people around you like, yeah, it's probably not a great idea. Stick where you're doing. I'm like, good point. So definitely. Did you have any mentors growing up? Do you still have a mentor now, Allan?
I have. I've had mentors for the last 20 years, but they've been mostly in the form of books that I've read. You can see a bunch of them kind of behind me. I believe in mentors, and I've kind of sought them just through my personal life, and I have mentors in different areas of my life, my spiritual life, my family life. Always looking for people that have that perspective. I have a golf coach, and the cool thing about it is they can look at you and they can see stuff that you can't see, right? But I don't have like one mentor. I've always had kind of a number, and my greatest mentors have been people that don't even know I exist. So people with podcasts like this one, people that wrote books that don't even know who I am. And I take what they've taught me, and I apply it to my specific situation, because every situation is unique. And so you can't just try to recreate the wheel. You have to take what you've learned from somebody and apply it to your specific scenario.
That's great. I'm going to end with 2 last questions. I know we're running out of time here. One, you kind of already answered. You gave us a book. Give me your top few books that you would recommend.
Good to Great. I already mentioned Cash Flow Quadrant, Robert Kiyosaki.
Good one.
Take the Stairs by Rory Vaden. These are all business books. Let's see. I read this book. What's it called? It's right behind me. It's called Deep Work.
Oh yeah. Very good. Yeah.
Very good book talking about how distraction can really affect our lives. Every December I read a book Mitch Albom wrote called Tuesdays with Morrie. It's a really quick read. I can read it in a little over an hour. And it's a story of about this college student that grew up, and his college professor is dying, and he's learning all these lessons about life from this man that's dying. And this man was his mentor. And so I read that every year. I don't even know how many times I've read it, 15 times or something, but it gives me perspective with the new year coming.
Yeah, there's a book called The Wealthy Gardener that kind of reminds me of that. Like the guy's owns a vineyard, a wine vineyard, and then he meets this kid, and the kid's kind of like a bum, just not doing much with his life, and like they're neighbors, and they start talking, and it is really cool. I really like that book too. And then the last question for you, which I probably know the answer, but I could be wrong. What are you most proud of to this point in your life?
I break down my life into different categories, and I have goals for different categories. So if you're talking like totally like just period, not in a specific category, my legacy is my family. I look at that as my number one job, my responsibility, and my relationship with my wife, and then that with my kids. Nothing.
I knew that would be the answer.
Yeah. Nothing that I do professionally or financially or socially will ever compare. It just can't, right? Because of the impact that I have on their lives and their impact on me. Harvard did this like 90-year study on happiness, and it came down to relationships. It's like nothing else like held a flame compared to what relationships do for us. So that's definitely my legacy and the most important thing I'll do on this earth.
That's cool. How's football season going?
Great, man. My team's 5-0.
Nice.
We just won on Saturday. In the 3 of our wins have been less than 1 score, and 2 of them have been 1 point. So I told the coaches, man, I'm getting too old. We got to start winning games by more than 1 score. And this last week, Saturday, we scored with literally 1.3 seconds left to win. So, dude, it's so fun though. It surprises me how much I've loved it. And I look forward to practice. We have practice tonight. Like we game plan and we lay out our practices and we talk about what we're going to do. And it's so much fun for me to be able to spend time with my son and his friends and kids that age. And this is tackle football. So these kids this is the first couple of years of them slamming their bodies into other people and learning how to get knocked. And they all get their butts kicked and they get knocked down at some point. All of them do, even the big kids. And they're learning like, hey, what am I capable of doing? How do I react when I get knocked on my butt? And what are my options? And it's really fun being there when that happens.
Yeah, I agree. Well, good luck to you guys. Allan, you're a stud. I love everything you're doing. I can't wait to see what you guys do the next 5-10 years of proof. It's going to be pretty incredible. Again, thanks for hanging out with us last hour, and I appreciate our new friendship, and it was good chatting with you again.
Same, brother. Appreciate you.
Talk to you soon.
All right.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to another episode of Pest Control Millionaire. We don't charge any money for the show, obviously, but the podcast isn't free. You can pay for the podcast by sharing it with your friends and your family. So please like and subscribe and give us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. These things make a huge difference for us. If you have any specific questions you want answered about the business or your life by me or my guests, send an email to info@pestcontrolmillionaire.com. And if you want to get in touch with me about any personal business coaching, check out our website at www.pestcontrolmillionaire.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys again on the next one.